Hey, I'm about recording too.
Welcome to regularly scheduled lunch meeting for Thursday. I'm Trudy Williams. I'm your Rotary Club of Tyler president for 2023-2024. Don't say that too fast. You'll get in trouble. If you're just now coming in, please make sure you go back to the back and get something to eat. Please continue enjoying your lunch. It's nice to see such a wonderful crowd today, and it always is a good crowd whenever we have one of our wonderful elected officials here to give a program we're so excited to have. All right. You know what we're going to do. We're going to take out our cell phones, okay? If you have your cell phone with you, please turn it to vibrate. Make sure it doesn't ring during our presentation, and make sure to take a selfie. You can take one of just you by yourself or you and your very best friends at your table. You can check into Holly Tree Country Club, and then you can also check into the Rotary Club of Tyler and upload that to your favorite social media page. Our pianist is still out, so please remember her. She's getting well. We do miss that music, but I think we make up for it in loud conversation right at the beginning. Don't you think? We had a lot of conversations going on. Okay, greeters for today. Richard Perryman and Claudia Carroll, thank you so much. They came in the door. And now I'd like to welcome to the podium Rochelle Urick. She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem.
I won't hold the microphone too close, I promise, while singing. Thank you all. So wonderful to have Bryan here again with us. We truly appreciate it so much. If you'll stand and face this amazing, beautiful flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say,
was so bright, nobody read Flies leaning, whose one sky and bright stars, bring the perilous fight, for the line of sleep. We're so gallantly dreaming, the lover sing. Get the proof, that my father was still there. Oh, they come stop your smelly girl, that's what we have.
Thank you so much. Okay, and now I would like to welcome to the podium Dr. D.M. Edwards. He's going to lead us in our invocation and our introductions.
DM.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's bow together. Our Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together as American citizens to enjoy the privileges of life, liberty, and happiness, the joy of reassembly. We thank you, Lord, for every blessing that you pour out upon us. We lift up to you, Lord, each person that's represented here at this meeting today and their families, and ask your watch, care, and guidance and protection on each person and each family. We lift up to you the work of our own Tyler Rotary Foundation and the work of a Rotary International Foundation around the world. Thank you for this food, for every blessing. We ask it in your perfect name. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated and we'll recognize our visiting Rotarians and guests. But before we do that, I want to take just a moment. Those of you that were here last week, you heard our current Tyler Rotary Foundation President Pamela Walters talk about the work of our foundation, how it benefits in so many areas. I want to mention for the new club members that back in 1995, when Dr. David Nichols was the president of this club, that he wanted to start the Tyler Rotary Foundation. And one of our members, who's an attorney and an expert in estate planning, John Payne, graciously drew up all the paperwork to incorporate the Tyler Rotary Foundation so that we could get our 501c3 tax exempt status. So we can always thank both Dr. Nichols and John Payne for what we've been able to accomplish since 1995. And at this time, let me begin by asking the visiting Rotarians that are here with us today, would you please stand and introduce yourselves, visiting Rotarians?
John Hart, South Tyler.
Wonderful, sir.
Tammy Haas, Lewis River, out of Washington State.
Wonderful, wonderful. We invite you to come join us. And then I have a guest today. You remember our longtime Executive Secretary, Bryan Hall. We're delighted to have her husband, Charles Hall, as my guest today. If you'd stand, let us welcome her. And let me begin here at this table. I know Bill Bryan has a gift to introduce to us.
Yeah, fellow Rotarians, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Stephen Westmoreland, former member of this club and the Dean of Psychologists in East Texas. Dr. Westmoreland. Welcome.
And we'll introduce our keynote speaker here in just a minute. How about the guest at the back table here? All home folks, all right?
I'd like to introduce our new district executive for the Boy Scouts of America in the Tyler district. They call it Lo-Ha-Lee. But this is Beth Ruton, and she pronounces her last name Ruton. But she is our new district executive, full of energy and excitement. I think it's going to be an asset to our East Texas Area Council of the Boy Scouts.
Other guests here at this table.
This is a good friend of ours, Miranda Edmondson. She is the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for Meals on Wheels, Texas. She's also a member of Marvin Church. She also goes to core service that we go to in-house and small group together. So I'm excited to get to
This table. All home folks here. All right. And how about guests at this table?
I want to introduce two guys, Melissa Perkins. She's our executive director at Breckenridge Village, and she was kind enough to join me today, so please welcome her.
Here, I know our president has a guest here today.
I do. I'm so glad that now I can bring, or I can coerce my husband into joining me for work. As you all know, was the facilities director for Kilgore College, and now he's the institutional director of safety and emergency response for TJC, and we are so happy to have him at TJC. We called me trying to say, so you're right down the road and you're really close to Rotary, so you can just come every Thursday, and then maybe eventually you can also be there. We'll see. Oh, no pressure.
That's noble. I'm pleased to have with me today Charles Hill. Charles lives in Tyler and in Dallas. He's a native of Dallas. His primary business interest is in Dallas and commercial real estate. He owns shopping centers.
of the club that we've been on. Thank you. Come back often.
Thank you, DM. And yes, we're so happy to have so many guests. We really welcome you. We want you to come back as much as you like. And of course, if you come back over and over, why not consider becoming a member? We do have an unwritten, unspoken rule, except I'm going to speak it now. That if you come back 3 times and you like it enough to be here 3 times, you might as well fill out an application. Might as well. Okay. Paul Blaser is out of town this week again. And I do have a note here that he is out of town. He's in Washington, D.C. Is he filling in for that? History. So I do apologize about that. I do have some important announcements about Rotary birthdays and anniversaries. So we're going to begin with Rotary birthdays. Susan LaVoy is celebrating a birthday on March 4th, or has already celebrated March 4th. John Jacobs, March 14th. Kathy Levin, March 16th. Nidra Allgood, March 21st. Billy Hibbs, March 24th. Lawrence Levine, March 25th. And Jim Blair Jr., JB3, March 26th. JB1, sorry. And Fisher Mom. You're not going to be 88? Okay. You don't look at date. I was about to say you don't look 88. So please join me in singing happy birthday to our Rotarians. Happy birthday, dear Lily. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear good sister. Happy birthday. And many more. We're so glad to have you as members. We have some members that are also going to be celebrating some anniversaries, and this is members' years of membership. So I want to start with Annette Fox. She'll be celebrating 1 year, March 2nd. Curtis Scudder, 2 years on March 1st. Juan Mejia, 7 years, March 2nd. Kim Lesnar, 7 years, March 2nd. Kim Lewis, 10 years, March 13th. And Claudia Carroll, 25 years on March 1st. That's a lot of years. We are so happy to have these Rotarians, and we're very, very proud of our membership. We want to thank them so much for being members. Rotary Business. David Jones would like to give a brief update on our banquet that's coming up in April.
Thank you, Madam President. Our banquet, the Young Citizens Banquet, is April the 18th at the Green Acres Crosswalk. This year's theme, let your light shine. Not light your that shine, but anyway, let your light shine. Whatever is it. Bifocals just don't work as good as, anyway. But that is the theme for this year. And we have sponsorships available. And we have made 21 requests for sponsorships. And here are the results of our 21 asks. We have had 4 yeses, and we've had 2 no's. We have had 2 that I'm still having difficulty getting a follow-up appointment with. I've left 6 voicemails, and I've got 5 that said, call me back and remind me. And then I have 2 that have requested, please send me the material again. I can't find it. How many of y'all have done that before? But anyway, and so of the events, sponsorships that are available, the event sponsorship is open. The keynote speaker sponsorship is open. And we have 7 of the 10 table sponsorships still open. The sponsorships that have been taken are the dinner sponsorship by Dr. Edwards. One of the tables is one by our very own Charlie, just go. Huh?
Annie Dwyer.
Annie Dwyer, thank you. And then another one is by Mr. JB3 and his company. And then the third one's by Austin Bank. And so we still have 7 of those available. And the upper level list will be given by name in the big celebration thing that we're going to do at Tyler Today magazine in June. So if you like your company's name to have some nice publicity, we're still available for several sponsorships. The event sponsorship, keynote sponsorship, and then also some table sponsorships. So we'd like to get these done very quickly because some deposits are due, and we really need to get this done. So if we gotta have some banners printed and et cetera, et cetera. So it's time to get these things in. So if you're considering, please don't hesitate. Let me know ASAP. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, David. Okay, Historic Tyler Home Tours, we've got some announcements to go through. April 6th and 7th. The candlelight party is going to be the evening of April 5th. I believe you can sign up for that on their website. You can go ahead and get tickets on their website. Is that right? Okay, if you haven't already done that, I want to encourage you to go ahead and do that. I waited too late here on the candlelight party, and I didn't get to get a ticket. So go ahead and be thinking about what you're going to be doing in April. Okay, so that's going to be a really packed, heavy, eventful month for this club. The Great Tyler Cleanup is April the 13th. 9 a.m. to noon at Burkeville Park. They're going to be serving lunch following that at Southside Park. You can sign up to volunteer on Sign Up Genius. Those Sign Up Genius links should have all gone out in your emails. Again, another reminder that should have gone out to your email is the Multi-District Conference. That is April 26th through the 28th. It will be held at the Choctaw Resort and Casino in Oklahoma. I am signed up to go. I know several of you in this room are signed up to go. I've spoken before about what a wealth of information the Multi-District Conference is when it comes to Rotary. If you are a fairly new member, and that means, when I say new, I mean 10 years or less, it's a really good time to learn about Rotary. You're going to meet members from other clubs that could be doing things that maybe we have wanted to do but couldn't figure out how to quite launch. And then there are other clubs that are wanting to do the things that we are already doing, and we have answers for them. And we can all help each other get plugged in and get things going. So if you haven't signed up for that, I want to encourage you to go. It'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to have breakout sessions in the casino. Can't wait to think about that time. You can sign up at Rotary5830.org, and you can also create a club runner profile, and you can sign up that way. Please keep bringing the grocery sacks. We are still going to be collecting those all throughout the year for the East Texas Mobile Food Bank. Remember, plastic, not paper. They can't really use the paper ones, so please keep bringing those. Remember to send in your volunteer hours. February volunteer hours are now needed. Please email those to Holly. We had a lot of questions about those in the past. If you donate blood, that time that you spend sitting in that chair, you are volunteering not only your blood, but your time to do that. If you teach a Sunday school class, if you are an usher in your church, if you are just a greeter or one of your church administrators and you do everything on Sunday, or if you volunteer at your child's school or anything like that, outside of Rotary, does not have to be a Rotary volunteer job, any of that, please send that in to Holly. Okay, the program for next week that we have on the schedule is Cheryl Torres. She's going to be giving a program on Elijah's Retreat, and that's in Jacksonville. You have
5 o'clock.
Oh, 5 o'clock. Yes, our next 5 o'clock somewhere is the 18th. 19th. All right, March 19th. Yes. Please don't forget about those. We've made a lot of connections through those 5 o'clock somewheres. And we've had a lot of participation through the other two clubs. Usually we always have somebody there from South Tyler. And I love to see the Sunrise Club show up for that. I know it's awfully late for them because they meet in this very room on Thursdays at 6 a.m. So they had their meeting at 6 o'clock this morning, and then, I get it. They're early risers. But we really like to have a lot of you come out for that because we do take a lot of pictures. We put that out on social media, and people find us through those events. We have two guests who are here today that found us through some of those events. So just make sure that you come, bring a friend. You can bring people, doesn't have to be a Rotarian. Okay? And then I'd like to welcome to the podium Dr. D.M. Edwards. He's going to introduce our speaker for today, Senator Bryan Hughes. I've known Bryan Hughes for quite a while. We visited briefly. Even when I was executive director at Meals on Wheels, he was super involved in helping us get needed funding to feed seniors. And then just recently, I learned about a project that he actually helped kick off that's happening at Christus. It's a wonderful project, and he'll tell you more about it. So, Tim?
Thank you, Madam President. For those of you that follow closely what goes on at the state capitol in Austin, this past legislative session was full of highlights and lowlights. We're so delighted today to have Senator Bryan Hughes here to speak to the club about that and update us about what's going on statewide. He's a native of the East Texas area. Those of you that are longtime residents of this area will recall when Senator Hughes was our state representative several years ago before becoming senator. I could give you a lot of great information about Senator Hughes, but we wouldn't have room for a program. So would you join me in welcoming to the podium our state Senator Bryan Hughes.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the introduction. It's good to be home. As you know, we have a part-time legislature in Texas. That normally means we meet for 140 days every 2 years, and so that's in those odd numbered years. So last year we would have expected to be there for basically January through May, but we had a couple of, I guess, 4 special sessions. Not all that special, but 4 full sessions, extraordinary sessions. But we also had an impeachment trial, a lot of historic things, and so ended up spending the year in Austin. But it's good to be home. It's good to be home. And just thank you for letting me reconnect. So many folks in this room. Again, people I've known for a long time and worked with, folks who've helped us, I know who prayed for us, who, my goodness, and this is not a political speech, but there are folks here who've campaigned for us and contributed to us and put up signs and all those things that you don't have to do and put your good name behind us. That means so much. And so thank you. I can't tell you what that means. Briefly about that legislative process. You know, the system is designed more to kill bills than it is to pass bills. And that's okay, right? We can appreciate that, and we're pretty conservative folks around here. But to give you some perspective, at the beginning of a legislative session, there's about 6,000 bills that get filed. I know, yeah, it's too many. 6,000 bills get filed. Now, most of those bills will get referred to a committee. Education, transportation, public safety. The ones that don't go to committee will die. Of the ones that go to committee, most of them will get set for a hearing in the committee. The rest will die. Of those that get a hearing in the committee, some will get a vote. The rest will die. Of those that make it through the committee, some will make it to the floor. The rest will die. And some of those that make it to the floor will pass and then go through the process in the other house. And then hopefully for the governor's signature. So all that to say, out of 6,000 or so bills that get filed at the beginning of that session, there's going to be about 1,300 that become law. And so what does that mean? It means that many times, because the system is designed to kill bills, there are many choke points and roadblocks along the way. So many times there's a common sense reform that everybody in this room is for. We just think, well, we need to get this done. We need to pass a bill to make this change. And sometimes those common sense bills don't make it all the way through the first time. And it's kind of embarrassing when I have to come back and say, yeah, I couldn't get that bill passed. But here's the encouraging thing. For all the good bills that don't make it through the first time, there's a whole bunch of bad bills that die in the process. It is a win-win process, and overall, it works. And I'll say this too. Texas is a part-time citizen legislature. Of course, the U.S. Congress, before any of us were here, decades ago, was also a part-time citizen legislature. The U.S. Congress was that way. Every state legislature was that way. And so you would be elected for a term and you'd leave your old job and go down to the Capitol for a while and make some laws. Then you would come back and go back to your old job and live under the laws you made. Of course, the Congress for a long time has been a full-time position, and all the big states, except for us, I mean, they think they're big states, New York, Virginia, Florida, they're biggest states, not as big as us. Every state, even half our service, has now gone to a full-time legislature, just like Congress. And so the folks who are elected to serve in those state legislatures go to the Capitol full-time, and that's where they live, it's what they do. And many good people do that. I will say that when you have that situation all the time and passing bills, government tends to grow, and bills that definitely shouldn't make it through tend to make it through. So I'll say this, as inefficient as our system is, it's good that it's hard to pass a bill in Texas. It's good we have a narrow window to get bills passed in Texas, because it has had the effect of keeping the state government in Texas relatively lean and relatively small, relatively efficient. An honest lawyer, Mr. Bryan, he calls himself that. Of course, he is his partner. I was going to ask much of your life, but you're here now. What I'll do, but forgive me. So all I have to say that we are blessed to have this system. Now, I can't say much about the caliber of your representation today, but the system does keep the government relatively lean, relatively small, and responsive. So we're thankful for that. So we did have the regular session and a few special sessions. This time, I want to share a few things that came out of that. Many folks here were involved. Many folks were here I visited with at the Capitol during session. Others I heard from, others I got to hear from back home. And by the way, I was beating up on Congress a little bit, but aren't you excited about Nathaniel Moran as our Congress? Judge Louis Goldberg would be loved, service solo. We are blessed in this part of the world. And I'll say something, it's not a political speech, but how many of us here have met Daniel Alders? Okay, Daniel Alders again, I'm going to get political. He's one of the candidates for the Texas House, and you'll make a decision in the fall. But around here, when you win the Republican primary, you're normally going to win in the fall. Sometimes I say, around here, whatever idiot wins the Republican primary is going to win in the fall. And I'm having proof of that. But so anyway, Daniel will be our state rep. He's not an idiot. I believe he'll be our next state representative. The election will tell. But if you haven't met him, you will enjoy him. He shares our values. He's conservative. He's not mad about it. He just wants to represent Tyler and Smith County and do the job. I think you'll enjoy it. Many of you he's already met many of you. So all I have to say, out of that legislative session, a number of things I'll say, and you already know this, and we are blessed. We're blessed to be in Texas. The numbers keep rolling in. You know that since February of 2020, if you look at all the jobs created in America, across the whole country, 1 in 4 were in Texas. Isn't that something that amazing? Talk about this Texas miracle, and it's not what the government is doing. What we're doing is staying out of the way, trying to keep the government small and in its corner, and letting people in this room innovate and create jobs and build and grow the economy. It's working. So thank you guys for what you're doing. It works. It matters. And of course, these numbers about the flow of people back and forth are interesting. So I want to make sure I get this right. 1 in every 4 jobs in the U.S. in Texas. What about Tyler? Given Tyler, our growth rate of employment, we just got this from Dr. Perriman when he was in town. Our employment growth rate in Tyler is twice the national average. And that's, and again, folks in this room and people like you are making these things happen. And we're thankful for that. And migration, people going from one state to the other. These numbers are very interesting. As they say Texans we are the stickiest state in the country. Because people born in Texas tend not to move up. It's just interesting. Now, sometimes you have to. That's okay. We might question your judgment, but that's okay. You're back. So Texans tend to stay here. And for folks who weren't born in Texas coming here, record levels now, about 1,300 people a day are moving here from other states. Now, I'm not talking southern, we'll talk about that. Migration, 1,300 people a day. So anyway, we're blessed to be here, and I'm such an honor for me to get to represent you and to speak for you. The biggest matter that came out of the last legislative session, I believe we could say, was property tax relief. So we talk about taxes. Look at the taxes that states charge their people. Texas has one of the lowest tax burdens in the country. We're one of the 10 lowest because most states have a state income tax. Now, are y'all okay with Texas not having a state income tax? I'll say it. So that is the quickest way to ruin the state, is bringing the state income tax, ruin it economically. So Texas is one of the few states with no state income tax. Of course, because of the lack of a state income tax, we do rely heavier on property taxes in some states. But again, look at all the taxes that people pay to their state governments across the country. Income tax, property tax, sales tax, value-added tax, all those together, even with our relatively high property taxes, we have one of the 10 lowest tax burdens in the country. But what about those property taxes? It's been a challenge for a long time, and it's sort of like what's it called, whack-a-mole. Like maybe the tax rate goes down, but then your appraisal goes up, and it seems like they just invariably go up. And so we've been working on this for a long time. We passed a bill 2 years ago that began to have an effect, came to full effect this year. So let me ask you this. This is kind of old news, but last year, let's talk about our homes. For your house, when you got your appraisal for your property tax value for your home, how many of us saw your appraisal go up last year? Most of us probably did. But then when you got the actual tax bill, not the appraisal, but the amount of taxes you had to pay on your home, how many of us saw it go down, your tax on your home? Can you remember that ever happening before? I don't know. It's been a long time. And so, again, finally we have some rules in place to make that work and make that work better. So basically, we took about $18 billion of your money. It's money that the state took in oil and gas service taxes and sales taxes because the economy is growing. And we use that $18 billion to lower those school and city and county property taxes. And we'll do it again next session, Lord willing. So what you're going to see now is a limit on the amount those taxes can go up, while we continue to bring them down every time we meet. So you're going to see more of that. And again, that's your money. That's not a gift from me. That's your money. We're just trying to be wise about it, trying to reduce those property taxes, because other than the income tax, the property tax is just about the worst tax we have. Right? It punishes you for working hard, for being successful, for producing. Again, income tax is worse, but property tax, we're trying to work on that one well. So more of that's coming, but just be aware of that. And of course, so much is happening locally that's exciting. Obviously, the medical school, wow, it is moving so fast. And the medical school here is a great example of how generous this community is. I don't like to tell people in this room, we're just talking about the foundation, all this club does, but you know how generous this community is. Tyler has always been known as a place that is generous and also prosperous. Do you think that's a coincidence? I think God has to honor that, don't you?
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons we do well here is because folks are so kind and so sharing and so generous. And so you know about the major gift to get that medical school started, the largest single gift in history. And of course, the money that's come in since then, the state money. So that medical school is on track and very exciting. Also, our pharmacy school at UT Tyler. You know, when we started the pharmacy school about 6 years ago, we had to get permission from the Higher Education Coordinating Board for UT Tyler to have a pharmacy school. And so they took the position, yeah, we don't need another pharmacy school. There's plenty of pharmacy schools. Y'all don't need one. So to get it done, Senator Eltife and I and many people in this room, we went to the state and we said, okay, if you'll just let us build a pharmacy school, give us permission for UT Tyler to have a pharmacy school, we won't even ask for any state funding. We'll do it all privately. And they kind of grudgingly agreed to do that, but they did. They did. We got that done. But of course, it's grown and demand is through the roof. And so one effect of that was, though, that our tuition was kind of high because it was like they had to pay like private school rates. Being officially young is kind of neat. You know what I mean? Young, it's been a while for me. But then before he left, he made me he took the young off. So thank you again. I think it was a slow year, but and Dr. Mackey, I'm so glad that you guys are sticking around. I'm glad you're traveling. I'm so glad you're sticking around. This community can't lose you guys. We're so thankful for you. And So we just think about the institutions here that we have, that we enjoy, and that we are blessed by, that this club nourishes with all your charitable work and all your volunteer work. So thank you for it. I'm going to, this afternoon, I'm going to be speaking up in Texarkana. Senate District 1's about 1 million people. It goes from here to over to Carthage, up to Texarkana, back over to Paris. And I'm going to be in Texarkana, and I'm reminded, whenever I talk about the border, when I'm in Texarkana, I have to clarify which one I'm talking about. So let's talk for a minute about our southern border with Mexico. We in Texas have known, we in Texas have known for, I was going to make an Arkansas joke, but I'll save that for Texarkana. We in Texas have known for a long time about the crisis at our southern border. And we don't even have words to describe it now, but just a little perspective on what's been happening. So you think about the map, picture that border with Mexico in the whole U.S. About 60% of that border of U.S. and Mexico is Texas. We have about 60% of it. And also, if you think about how Texas goes to the south and about the shape of Texas, Brownsville and parts of South Texas are much closer to Mexico and to the source of illegal immigration than other border states. So since Texas has about 60% of Mexico, and since we're closer, it won't surprise you that we historically have over 60% of the illegal crossings, right? Look at all the crossings into the U.S. on the Mexican border, and over 60% are in Texas. And so, what are we doing about that? Let's talk about the wall. So, during President Trump's administration, I think the number is 438 miles of beautiful wall were built or expanded, 438 miles. How many of those miles do you think were in Texas? So across the U.S.-Mexico border, now we already had some wall, we already had some fence, but in the previous administration, they added 438 miles. How many of those miles do y'all think were in Texas? You can just shout it out, it's okay.
250.
250, good guess. Anybody else have a guess? How many of the 438 were in Texas? Well, it was about 50. And it's really surprising, but if you think about the mechanics, so think about that U.S.-Mexico border, go to El Paso, and then go west over toward all the way to California. That border is pretty well, generally a straight line. It's an artificial geographic, it's artificial boundary they've just drawn, right? But then from El Paso back this way, you got the Rio Grande River, and it goes like this, right? And we've got mountains. And so it's a lot more expensive and difficult to build a wall in a lot of Texas than it is in Arizona, New Mexico, California. Mm-hmm. So we tend to not get as much of the resources. So what are we doing about that? And we're thankful for the wall we have. What are we doing about that? Well, we're using your Texas tax dollars. Texas is building her own wall. We're building it to the federal specs. We're building it cheaper than they did. There's a number, you probably know about this, a number of cases where when wall construction was stopped. So when the administration changed, in 2021 in Washington, when the new administration came in that didn't like the wall, they ordered all the work stopped. And many of the panels for the wall had already been paid for. They ordered to be stopped. We were able to go and buy a number of those panels, and we're using those in the Texas border wall now. But by the end of this year, we'll have about 100 miles of new wall on the Texas-Mexico border. It's part of the solution. The experts will Now, it's expensive, and it's part of about $11 billion we've spent on border security. Texas tax dollars just since the administration changed in D.C. And it's frustrating to us because this is a federal responsibility. We shouldn't have to do it. But do y'all agree that if the feds won't, we don't really have a choice, we have to? And we're thankful, again, for a strong Texas economy that allows us to do this and for taxpayers that want us to. And so, in addition to that wall, what else are we doing? You already know that we have boats on the Rio Grande River. The Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS guys, we have a Marine tactical unit now, and they have armored boats with 50 caliber machine guns going up and down the Rio Grande River. We also have more helicopters, airplanes, balloons, and again, there's the wall and other physical barrier, and yes, even wire. And all these things are in place to deter illegal crossings. And this is a difficult issue. We understand. This is I know people in this club. I know this community. There are compassionate people here. And we recognize if any of us, I suspect if any of us were in a country where we couldn't feed our families and it was dangerous and we didn't have any other options, we would bear we would bear a lot of hardships to get to a better place. We don't blame folks for wanting to come here and wanting a better life. We also know with this wide open, unfettered legal immigration, in addition to folks coming here wanting a better life, we have people on the terror watch list. We have guns, we have fentanyl, we have all kinds of foreign nationals, and yes, even foreign nationals from countries that are our sworn enemies. We have to have that border secure, don't we? We have to have that border secure. And so we've got to. You've seen even recently where Governor Abbott he's always been aggressive about this. Many of us here know Governor Abbott well, and he's beloved here. Governor Abbott is not a guy who raises his voice and pounds on the table. He's a soft-spoken guy, but he gets it done. He gets the job done. You know, some other governors of states brag about what they're doing, maybe more than he does, but he's getting it done. And you've seen our border policies in Texas are having an effect. You saw where there was a park in the city of Eagle Pass that had become a major staging area for illegal immigration, and so that's now been taken over by Texas National Guard. It's no longer are there thousands of illegal crossings a day. There's a Texas National Guard, Texas DPS presence there, and that has stopped. And to give you some more perspective, we mentioned, how Texas has about 60% of the border. A little over 60%. We're closer to Mexico. And as a result, we've historically had over 60% of the illegal crossings from Mexico. But now, because of the helicopters and the boats and the wire and the wall and the National Guard and the DPS troopers and the game wardens, because of all the resources we put on the border, now, if you look at all the illegal crossings into America, about 30% are in Texas. They're going somewhere else because it's getting expensive and dangerous and difficult to cross in Texas. Now, they may be ending up crossing in Arizona or California, but about half of the quantity are crossing in Texas that were before. So we're going to keep doing that. We hope. It's funny, for years now, and I'll just say this, this is not a partisan speech. For years, under Republican and Democratic administrations, we've had to spend your money for border security. It's harder with one party than the other, but we've had to do it under both parties. And every year we send a bill to the feds. We really do, a bill for all that we spend. I'm sure the check's in the mail. We haven't gotten any money back yet. I'll tell you this, on that wall in particular, we're optimistic that this wall we're building, we have reason to believe that we might be able to get reimbursed for that in a couple of years. Now, whether we do or not, we're going to keep doing it. But there's hope that we can get some of your money back from the feds on that. So many things I can warn you about that. I want to mention a couple more things and then see if there's time for questions. Now, if you have any corrections or anything to what I've said, let's speak privately. I'll be around afterwards. Some fellows. Sure. Great. Sorry, was I frowning when I said that? You can correct me if you need to. President and I were talking about a program, an interesting program that Texas has coming. So y'all remember the Baby Moses Law. Remember that concept. From time to time, many times, you'll have a young mother with an unwanted pregnancy. And so the child is delivered and she doesn't know what to do. And we see these stories from time to time where children are left in convenience store restrooms or in dumpsters, just heartbreaking stories. And so Texas, in 1999, about 2001, before I was there, passed the Baby Moses Law, one of the first states to do that. And that says if you have an infant that you don't want to care for, don't want responsibility for, bring it to an emergency room, bring it to a fire department, and you can hand off that baby. The baby will be cared for, and no questions asked. You won't be asked for support or anything else. It's to save the life of that child. It's been very effective. But other states have learned, as we have, that even though we have that Baby Moses Law, many times a young mom in a tough situation doesn't want to keep that child. She's afraid to go to the ER or afraid to go to the fire department or the police station. And so in Indiana, they've come up with a device. They're for safe haven baby boxes. Baby box sounds scary. Stay with me a minute. So these are designed. Think about a night deposit think about a drive-through deposit at the bank. All right. So think about that drawer. Right. So these devices, these are set up on the outside of the fire department, hospital, police department. They're well lit. There's a sign explaining what they are. And so the mom who doesn't want to care for this child and might otherwise, heaven forbid, abandon it in some place where it won't be cared for, the mom can put the child in this box. It goes inside. an alarm goes off and the medical providers on the other side immediately get the child cared for. It's climate control, the child is safe. And the other states are doing this. And the dear lady from Lindale brought this idea to me 4 years ago, before the 2021 session. She brought this idea to us. So we filed a bill that said to authorize these in Texas. And the bill passed the Senate, didn't make it through the House. The House is a little slow sometimes, but we came back in 2023 and got the bill passed. And so that's now been authorized in Texas. And a donor, an anonymous donor named Rocky Gill. Many of you guys know. Oh, did I say his name? I'm sorry. So Rocky Gill, you know, Rocky's he's got such a generous man. One of his daughters, who he adopted from China, was abandoned by her parents as an infant, and she was found. And so she's a beautiful young girl living in Tyler, Texas. A wonderful story. And so she did the research on this, and she made a presentation to our friends at Christus and to me about how we should have one in Tyler. And so our friends at Christus are working on this. We hope to be the first one in Texas, here in Tyler. And so it's still it's going to happen. It's just a question of doing it. There's all this. It's so. More boxes, leave them in every hospital, in every emergency, every fire station. So that's something that I know we can all agree on. Again, it's important that Tyler be the first place to have one. So we're working on that. Other things I would mention, I was in Washington, D.C. last week at the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm going to go to my seat after this. There's a bill that we passed in 2021 that has to do with free speech. How many of us here are on Facebook? I know a lot of them. I'm pleased they have. Yes, sir. So, Facebook, social media, right? That's the new town square, right? That's where people go to hash it out, to share their ideas, to debate things. And I think we all recognize that right now we have a handful of social media companies. Facebook, Google, that owns YouTube, and Twitter, now X. We have a handful of companies, and they're the gatekeepers. They pretty much control it. Let me ask you this. I know y'all don't post ugly things. How many of us have been blocked of the put on Facebook? Yeah, for no apparent reason, right? It's so frustrating. You try to post something, you try to boost it, and they won't let you. Well, this violates our community standards.
Fact checker.
Oh, exactly, our fact checkers. You ask them for details, they won't give you details. And so it got so bad. Representative Scott Sanford, who was a state rep in Collin County, also a pastor, a couple of years ago, their church tried to post something about their Easter sunrise service. Not a terribly controversial or offensive topic, and Facebook wouldn't let them do it. So we got fed up with this, and so we filed a bill. And the bill says, first of all, it recognizes that social media providers, big ones, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, it recognizes that they are common carriers. What do we mean by that? Well, your cell phone provider can't cut you off because they don't like your politics. The electric company can't charge you more because of how you vote, because those are common carriers. And the law recognizes that though they're private companies, because of the service they offer and because of the market share they have so much power, we can't let them muzzle free speech. We can't let them be the gatekeeper. So this law says they're common carriers, and it says they've got to put on a website what the rules are. Just tell us what the rules are. Tell me why I'm getting blocked, and tell me the rules. I'll try to go with them. They also have to give us an appeal process, and it also says if they do block you based on your exercise of First Amendment speech, religion, politics, healthcare, if they block you, you can bring suit against them in Texas State Court. The judge makes them put you back online, and they got to pay your attorney's fees. That we had to throw that in as well, which makes sense. Now let me make one thing clear. A material that is lewd, lascivious, violent, of course, that's not protected by this bill. We're talking about First Amendment speech, your viewpoint. They don't like your views on health care or vaccines. Whether you're for or against them, we don't need a handful of San Francisco billionaires being the gatekeepers for free speech. Amen? Amen. That's just passed it. In fact, the Governor Abbott came to our office in Tyler. We had a press conference when we filed this bill because it was a big deal to him as well. Texas passed the bill. Florida passed one kind of like ours. Ours was a little better, but we're thankful for Florida. Both were challenged. Both were in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. I went there last week for the arguments, and so we're optimistic that law is going to be withheld. But these big tech, they have hired up every lobbyist, every lawyer. They're even spreading money around to conservative groups around the country to try to sway opinion. So just be aware of that. It's all about free speech. Whether you agree with me or not, you should have free speech. I always tell folks in America, one of the few places you can criticize the government. And if you don't think folks do that, just look at my Facebook when you get home. It's supposed to be. That's how it's, this is America. That's it. We work for you. And so, as I go to my seat, I'd love to see what anybody can take a couple minutes for questions or a couple of questions. Is that okay, Mr. President? Anybody got questions? Corrections are okay too. Shivs, insurance questions I'll have to give to somebody else, but go ahead.
Ballot, this was a proposal to do away with all property tax.
Yes.
Can you please explain what the plan was after you do away with all property tax?
Great question. In case you couldn't hear, Billy's asking about, if you voted in the Republican primary, you saw there were some questions. One says we do away with all property taxes, and that passed really high because nobody likes property taxes. But what are we going to replace it with? So there's a number of proposals out there. I like how we did it last year. When the economy grows and we're doing well, we have a budget surplus. Let's use that money to reduce the property taxes. Some folks have proposed, let's just switch out the property tax for the sales tax. But to do that, we'd have to add a dime to the sales tax. I think that's too much, don't y'all? And if you're in the business of selling anything expensive, you'd lose your business in Louisiana and Arkansas, right? So to your point, the referendum didn't say what to do. It just said it was kind of a Santa Claus referendum, I guess. But anyway, so I'm for systematically getting rid of property taxes, but again, good folks differ. I don't think we can do it in one fell swoop. I think it's got to be done a piece at a time. Is that what you're talking about? Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. Yes, sir.
I love the amendments on the ballot this time. I voted for every one of them. Who developed those amendments?
Great question. So talking about those amendments that are on the ballot. So the Republican Party, the State Republican Executive Committee, they took input from Republican primary voters and they put those on the ballot. And so, it's interesting. A lot of laws that we have get started that way. Way back in the 90s, there was a Republican primary ballot referendum like that about the concealed handgun license back when Texas didn't have that. And that kind of get the process started. So a lot of laws start there. So it came from the State Republican Party volunteer leadership. Those were strong,
right.
And they all passed by really big margins too. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, Doctor.
Tell me, what is the status of the legal problems with the federal government against Texas on our border security?
Thank you so much. I was asking about the feds challenging us. In addition to putting up the wall and the wire and sending all the troopers down there, we also passed a law that for the first time allows Texas law enforcement to enforce border law. So if a Texas officer witnesses someone cross illegally, we can take them into custody, find out who they are, see if they're already a criminal, and then we return them to the port of entry. If they won't go back, then we arrest them and put them in a Texas jail. The problem we have is when we apprehend people at the border now, turn them over to the feds turn them loose. And they say, you're going to have your hearing in 3 weeks. Will you come back? Oh, yes, I'll come back. Yeah. It won't surprise you, most of them don't come back. So we're in this U.S. Supreme Court right now on that bill, and they're supposed to rule on it very quickly on whether Texas has the right to enforce the border law. Arizona tried it about 12, 15 years ago. They were not allowed to, but they had a different bill than ours, and that was a different Supreme Court. So we're optimistic. Optimistic. Yes, sir.
Yes. I'd like to challenge you to actually put out there in the Senate about all the carrots. You lead the charge to stop the carrots that are bringing them here to Texas.
That's right.
I lived in Arizona for 5 years. I paid out of state tuition for 5 years. It seems pretty simple. It should be on day one. And this is in the legislature.
Questions about the magnets that are drawing people here. Many states offer more than just basic welfare benefits. Texas does not, but Texas does offer in-state tuition. And so that's unusual. Now, as far as public schools go, the Supreme Court has said we have to do that. By the way, y'all probably know this. The question of whether illegal aliens should be educated in public schools, that the Supreme Court said we have to, that was a Tyler case. And nobody here remembers Jim Plyler, but he was the superintendent. Right. That lawsuit is Plyler versus Doe, because back in the 80s, the conservative Democrat legislature passed a bill that said we're not going to educate folks here illegally. Tyler ISD was sued, went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they said you have to. But again, different Supreme Court. I totally agree. We have to revisit these questions and get better at it, because that's been 30 years ago. So yes, if you look at welfare benefits, Texas has one of the leanest offerings in the country. We are not a welfare queen state. But illegal, but in-state tuition is a factor. Now, is that when someone thinks about crossing illegal, are they thinking about that? I don't know, but it needs to be dealt with. I agree with you. That's a great point. Thank you, guys. So, oh, yes, sir.
Oh, just one thing. We talk about the uptick of accidents, let's say on I-20.
Yes.
And we attribute it to troopers being siphoned off
Yes.
and sent to the border, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
That's true. Sure, right? That's the way,
It is true.
yeah.
That's part of it. So the question is, all these DPS troopers at the border, it means there are fewer troopers here. And that's right. You can look at traffic enforcement is down across the state because there's so many troopers at the border. And we have hired new troopers to be permanently stationed at the border to fill in somebody if we're behind. We're getting behind. But you're right, it's a fact. It's a sacrifice. It really is. In addition to the money we're paying that. You're right. So y'all are so kind. I'm going to stick around and bore y'all off the record after we get done. But it's a joy for me to get to do this, to get to represent this community and these communities' values is a real blessing. And you know this, our right to free speech, to gather that we talked about before, and to petition the government, and to practice our religion or not to practice our religion. Those rights don't come to us from the state or from the feds. They come from our Creator, right? Yes. That's the same. He loves us so much, sent His Son to die for our sins. That same one gave us these rights. And this citizenship we enjoy in America, you know this. I'm just going to lecture you, but because of what you're already doing. These things don't stay around by themselves. But what you're doing, but the way you're serving, the way you're volunteering, the way you're engaged, that's what's going to keep America. So thank you. I'm honored to represent you.
We are always so glad to have you here, and of course, since you are one of our best presentations, we always make a donation in your honor to the Literacy Council for coming to speak today. And I am so honored about the baby boxes. I'm so glad you touched on that. There'll be more time if you all have any questions about that. I'd be happy to answer them too. But that is such a wonderful thing, and to have somebody so involved and to represent us so well. Thank you so much. Senator Hughes said he had to go to Texarkana, but yes, if you have questions, I'm sure he wouldn't mind hanging out afterwards to answer some of those questions if he didn't get to touch on the subject you wanted to ask about. So we do have one thing we want the senator to do to draw the halfway winning ticket number to Ace of Diamonds. For those of you who are visiting with us and don't know what this is it is something we contribute to weekly. There is a cash amount in there. If you are a member, you get half the amount. But he drew the ticket numbers, and after your ticket number is called, you also would have to draw the ace out of the deck of cards. So how much money actually collected up to date?
$708.
$708. So if the member wins it, they get. If you are visiting, then you only get a fourth of that. So what are the last four?
9873.
9873.
Make sure.
No. The top ticket.
Sprint?
Yeah. I'm ready to switch.
Let me check it first. Okay.
If I need to. I'm going to sponsor the thank you, kids.
42.
42 stars.
Oh, Bryan, thank you for that.
Stand as we recite the four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, third,
Will it result in better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
your turn. Have a great day.
Thank you.